So welcome to this event by Zena International Foundation. We will today have three speakers who will talk on three topics of contemporary interest. These speakers bring enormous expertise on the topics of interest, and we'll know a little more about the speakers as we will go along. Zena Foundation will continue to bring contemporary content to all our audiences. We have been doing this for the last 17 weeks, and those who subscribe to our channel can go through some of the videos which we have already posted in the last 17 weeks on topics ranging from internet hacking to very relevant to other topics which are of very of interest in the and relevance in the current times. Now, the way we will proceed is that we'll have a keynote and a welcome address by Mr. Amitav Pathak, and which will be followed by a talk by Mr. Chetan Gaglani on the Sensex and the future of India 60K. This will be followed by a talk by Mr. Ketan Shah, and he will speak on raising and managing funds for non-profit and profit organizations. That will be sort of his topic, which will be followed after these two speakers. Maybe we'll have Mrs. Mohana Chattopadhyay, who will talk on the digital economy. And these three talks will be followed by a Q&A and then a vote of thanks by Sister Tanaz Patel. And then we'll sort of close this event. Now, let me introduce to you Mr. Amitav Pathak. Mr. Amitav Pathak. He's an established business leader with more than 35 years of rich experience in IT, manufacturing, retail, e-governance, healthcare, and high-tech industries. He has worked extensively around the globe, and he is now settled in Delhi, working as an entrepreneur and a management consultant. He has worked for Steel Authority of India Limited, US Steel, IIS Inc., Polaris, and Intellect in various capacities, and has derived a lot of multicultural experience working in US, Europe, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Africa. He's passionate in products, design thinking, coaching, and building management teams, and has successfully built organizations while in IIS, Polaris, and Intellect. Extremely strong in project and program management and execution. He has managed large projects in Steel Authority India Limited, US Steel, and later led execution excellence through process and capability strengthening in companies like IIS and Polaris. He holds an engineering degree in electrical and electronics and a master's degrees in physics from prestigious Birla Institute of Technology and Science, Pilani. He also holds a management degree from IMA as a gold medalist. He's currently the director and strategist for Inulite, a product manufacturing company in nutraceuticals industry. He has also founded DataCrafts, developing some innovative and complex platform and solutions in healthcare. He's also an amateur painter and sculptor working in multiple mediums. Please welcome Amitav to this program today.
Zena World Vision Document. We are a family bringing joy, happiness, prosperity in our lives and around by nurturing, encouraging, catalyzing, enabling 360-degree well-being in physical, intellectual, emotional, social, and economic dimensions. Our vision: abundance of joy, happiness, care, and prosperity for all. Our mission: we strive for alleviating pain, suffering, and poverty, encouraging unshackled-free thoughts, enabling dignified jobs and livelihood, nurturing close family bonding, seeking joy and happiness in the impact caused. Our values: passion, Work with passion and from heart. Our values: humility, learning attitude, mutual respect, and open to listening to others. Our values: integrity, sincere, honest, and ethical principles. Our values: empathy, understand and feel others as your own. Our values: humanity, have compassion, brotherhood, fellow feeling, and kindness. Our values: joy, work that brings joy and value diversity and inclusion. Our character: trust, belief, faith, and confidence in self and in others, from where love and compassion emanate. Our character: virtue, high moral values, patience, consideration, trustworthiness, and forgiveness. Our character: transparency, honesty, openness, and not guarded. Thank you.
So I'm going to talk about the story of digital transformation and set a context of the three sessions that we are going to have. I'm Punita Pathak. So let's traverse through the brief history, maybe 30, 35 years back. 1980, I was in my first year and we used to work with IBM 1130. There were two EVP 11 that came in 2030. And the way to enter code or data was punch cards. 1983, the first mobile was launched by Motorola, China T8000X. Huge, big size device. 1985, I remember developed or constructed the first PC in India. I was working for DO. 1985 also, I did my thesis in fiber optics. So fiber optics was still in paper. 1990, the first VSAT was launched by DeepNet, NIC. There was no VSAT before that. 1991, the Param supercomputer was inaugurated. I think by 1993, the internet happened. www, very slow speed, but there 1200 bps. Dial-up. DOT those days had control over transmission of data. So 8-bit data transfer was not allowed. 7-bit transmission was allowed. Many of you will laugh when I give these statements. There. 2000, I remember there was one which go a little early to office to download all our mails from the mail dial-up server. Dial that and then download whatever mail is down to the remote server to the local. 2001, you all know, the first generation, e-commerce portal started coming up, like jaldi.com. They all built, most of them built. Some of them are still there, ready. Okay, then came a magic year, 2007. Most of you would have heard Moore's law. What the Moore's law says is the computational processing power will double every year. And then, there within bracket maintaining the price. So at the same price point, you would get the data processing capability doubling every year. Okay. Mr. Gordon Moore, Intel co-founder, 1965 is when he stated. And it seems to happen, and one technology sort of passed the baton to the other, and initially it was slow. So 1 became 2, 2 became 4, 4 became 8, 8 16 like that. Then 2007 happened. 2007 things started coming together. Okay. Actually, it happened 2006 last quarter, September, October. So September, the Facebook went public. Big event, very big. October, Google bought YouTube. The streaming, the loading of video, etc., became an option. In 2007, Apple launched iPhone, the Quora of you. So many of us would believe that Apple created that smartphone culture. No, okay. There were other agents who were equally fully responsible because everything came together. Okay. Google launched Android, and they also launched platform, an open standard platform where the Android code was sort of shared with everybody, and the developers chose to to work on that various things. So today, the Android OS, which is as rich as Apple almost, is the effect of that. AT&T started, a software-enabled network. So what the software-enabled network did was to increase the throughput by 10 raised to the power 5%. That much. Okay? With the same hardware, with the same wire, the throughput increased because it was controlled by software. Something like, say, in the electronic phone, you would have seen the calculator. There is no circuitry behind the calculators in some. Amazon launched Kindle, so the e-book revolution happened in 2007 again. IBM launched Watson. Okay, Watson defeated the first chess player in that. So the special purpose computer NLP that one. Intel researched non-silicon material called IK gates building the microchips. So the size of the chips started miniaturizing to an extent where now there are dedicated chips which can not only link with the sensor but also do some mini processing and store data. Then on the other side, Airbnb was launched in 2007. Palantir technology brought the big data analytics. A lot of things, and these are just what at the recall level. There are other things also which happened with the Now that changed things. So this is called the exponential growth. So initially, through our service years, 1980, 85, 2000, 2004, 2005, it was going in a semi-linear sort of, at the straight part of that exponential curve. And suddenly 2007, and then it was launched, and the gradient steepened. The computational speed started bending upwards significantly, and in 2014, the gradient got even more steeper. So the outcome was that the net set of capabilities to connect, to collaborate, and create in many aspects of life, commerce, like government, right, became so much easy, became so much simple. Okay. Now on the right side there is a graph. I'm sort of narrating this to you because you are not seeing the PPT. That the human adaptability, well, things kept changing and the pace of changing kept sort of rapidly increasing. The human capability of adapting is linear. So it started sort of giving up, and there was a gap between where we are in technology and what the the adaptability is. So what factor caused this? Okay. So as I told you, different and seemingly unrelated technology must progress to reach a stage where that created new possibilities together. Okay. The mobility and the internet and the the TV and everything sort of started merging. All right. So what are the mysteries which was solved? First mystery was the sensors. There was huge progress in material science and nanotechnology, resulting in small, cheap, and smart sensors. Okay. So now we have digitized sight, digitized sound, touch, hearing, and we are working on the smell. That's the only thing. Storage, both in dynamic RAM and in flash, right? Both kinds of storage. There is a huge progress where more and more transistors got pushing. A finger-sized chip now have 1 billion transistors. computers, 1 million, okay, or 1 by 14 nanometer sized transistors. Okay. That's the level. Human hands can't handle it anymore. So then we have the revolution of Hadoop, which brought several computers working together to store a thing and pull it out and retrieve as on me. So Google decided to open up the Google file system and the MapReduce, which are proprietary pairs. So they brought it to the developers to open up, develop. So that's it up. Then there was some change in the software. All the complexities was started getting masked. So within, and there were very easy and very little left for people to interact through the interfaces. And these interfaces was called API. Right? So the API, all seamlessness, it would call one another. Like anybody, if they want to interact with a map today, they would use the Google services of Google Map, like that. Other thing which happened was that there is a open platform called GitHub. GitHub became the platform for every developer to participate and to join hands. It's an open source created environment for participative development. So with some controls and with some guidance, now the development was worldwide. Everybody was participating, so the speed increased tremendously. Now, is that enough? No. There was again some breakthrough progresses in bandwidth and mobility. Fiber optics reduced the latency to around 1/4 the blink of an eye. So when we blink our eye, 1/4 of that time the latency has reduced. So I'm talking and there's no echo. Right? So you watch the videos. There were concerts across various nodes, and successfully done because there was no echo. The other thing, as I told you, software-enabled networking exploited new capabilities in the same hardware. The third one was very accidental. Okay, some of you will remember there was a technology called CDMA, okay, and before that it was time division multiplexing, TDMA. So the whole world was going TDMA, and Qualcomm thought of progressing in CDMA, and little did anybody, no support. Qualcomm didn't get any support from anybody in the world, in USB, whatever. But luckily, they had their own, sort of courage and their own conviction. So CDMA is the technology by which we are seeing smartphones today. Had it not been CDMA, even with iPhone, even with smartphone, we would have been nowhere. The other thing is the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi started providing the last minute connectivity. Okay? The smartphone becoming the local hub. So collect the information to the local hub and then transmit to the cloud. Okay? The other thing was definitely the cloud. Right? The name services run on internet, apps and data using network of computers from smartphone. So smartphone suddenly became very, very powerful. The last but not the least is the Watson, Siri, Alexa, the cognitive solutions enhancing the power of one and also the power of many. One person could do much more than what he used to do, and many would do much more. Okay? Suddenly, they got that richness within rich and free of complexity. So all this resulted in a state change. Now you'll remember, at least those who have done science till class 10, that all of you, is that the liquid, the solid state changes to liquid state, right? So when handling complexity became fast, free, easy, and invincible, while the connectivity became fast, free, easy to use, and ubiquitous, then the effect on commerce and business was like a breeze. Okay? So it started taking the frictions out. Anywhere there was bottleneck, anywhere there was, so all these clerical works, all these follow through, they started smoothly. Okay? They started becoming online, synchronous, asynchronous, and created a huge mass market. How? Through mobility, the mobile phones, mass market, okay? And provided access to information, access to any information. How? Through broadband. Okay, broadband available, you can pull in any information. Google is there for you. There are other search engines, all anytime, anywhere. Okay, how? Because the apps are in cloud. Anywhere you are, you have the access anytime, and all these at zero cost. So there's hardly any cost to do that, right? So from the friction of a solid to the friction-free liquid state, that's how I see it. All right, so what now? The race continues, the commerce to increase more and more online as breakthroughs are made in exponential technologies. What are these technologies? The technology levers are virtualization, are augmented reality, are cloud, are API, are NFR, beacon, are artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing, big data, data science, analytics, blockchain, Internet of Things. Okay. So seemingly varied things are coming together. So what are the current trends which we see? Single source of truth. Now practically possible. We used to struggle to create single source of truth in various systems in our times. Now no more. Okay. Endless aisle. Endless aisle is a concept where whether you reach some place through the mobile device or through the TV or through physically go there, or you would experience the same feeling. Okay? It started with retail. Now other industries are also catching. Virtual banking, virtual shopping, virtual services, virtual. In fact, other day I did KYC virtually. The whole process took me 10 minutes and was completely virtual. Cryptocurrency, okay, middleman going, banks going, there is no bank, there is no guarantee, there is no government, and it is self-sustaining. Security and secure transactions, transactions are becoming more and more secure. There was a full-fledged, talk by Zena on secure. Then on healthcare, there is telemedicine, there is remote procedure, there is EHR, electronic health records. So suddenly all these records coming to us because it belongs to us, the patient, not to the hospitals or that. So who would survive? Okay, who would survive growth? Organizations that are adaptive, because there is very, very fast pace. So adaptive organizations who are more agile than the disruptor. Every other day there is a disruptor, there is a new player who is disrupting. The only organizations which are more agile than those disruptors and lean, not heavy, okay? Lean because they need to turn around every other day, okay? Can afford a change in the spread. So in nutshell, we are getting uncomfortable and helpless with this roller coaster ride. As we are still linear in our technology adoption. So how do we regain control? So I looked at it like let loose and enjoy the fall like a parachute. Accept and practice being a little uncomfortable. Perhaps time has come to learn riding a bicycle and still be comfortable. Remember in our childhood, after we learned bicycle, we were balanced while the bicycle was moving. Okay? So we need to be balanced and comfortable on the move. So where are we headed to? We are ready to be propelled into next orbit, unfolding new realms of opportunities. Success factors of the past, which is based on scarcity, are fading out, and new ways and new norms are being established. So with this, I end my keynote address, and I welcome the team panelists and team to listen to their absorbing sessions. Thank you. I'm done.
Manish bhai, you have to unmute yourself.
So thanks, Abhitav bhai, and we'll now move to the next speaker, which is Mr. Chetan Gaglani. He is a practicing chartered accountant with 28 years of practice and has experience in diversified fields related to finance, which is audit and taxation. He practices in Rajkot and Mumbai, and majority of his Mumbai clientele comprises of personalities from the film and television industry. So if you need to meet various celebrities, he's the go-to man. He has expertise in direct and indirect taxation laws, income tax, GST, vast experience in statutory and internal audit. He was also on the reserve panel of the Reserve Bank of India for statutory audit of nationalized banks. He's adept at making project reports, budget, financial projections for new projects, as well as for expansion of existing projects and for raising of capital. Understands internal control systems in financial services and other companies very well. Of late, he has ventured into research in the stock market, price behavior, and he has sort of done some very original R&D on that. Apart from that, he's an avid. He has learned Sanskrit and has read a number of books on Indian and Western philosophy. He has tried to study the 9 Upanishads along with the original commentary of Shankaracharya in Sanskrit. And he's an ardent follower of Srimad Bhagavad Gita and tries to apply that philosophy in practical life and even professionally. So with this, I will hand over the stage to Brother Chetan, and he can take over from here.
Thank you, Manish. First of all, let me thank you to give an opportunity to give my presentation. My subject is Sensex, the future of New India. So this topic is much more relevant today as the Sensex has crossed 60,000, a benchmark level. What is Sensex? Sensex is the index of BSE. BSE, it was formerly known as Bombay Stock Exchange. It was established in the year 1875 and located in Dalal Street in Mumbai. It is Asia's, not only India's, but Asia's first and fastest stock exchange with a speed of 6 microseconds. BSE is the first stock exchange to be listed in India. What is stock exchange? What is index? A stock market index tracks the changes in the stock market. A stock index is created by picking up securities listed on the stock exchange. The criteria for choosing certain stocks for the calculation of the stock market index can be their market capitalization or the industry. Even though the stocks chosen for the index are limited, say in case of Sensex, there are hardly 30 stocks. So though the stocks are limited, they represent the entire Indian stock market and try to cover the major. Sorry? So they represent the entire Indian.
1 second, चेतन भाई,
हाँ बोलिए.
आप होस्ट हैं, आप अपने को छोड़कर बाकी सभी को म्यूट कर दीजिए.
ओके ओके.
पहले वो कर लीजिए, तो बैकग्राउंड कोई भी आवाज आ रहा होगा, वो पहले कर लीजिए आप.
Okay. So though the stocks chosen for the index are limited, there are only 30 in the case of Sensex and 50 in the case of Nifty. They represent the entire Indian stock market. Any change in the price of these stocks, these 30 stocks, affect the entire stock market index. The movement of the stock index depicts the sentiment of the overall market and the price movements of other financial products, including commodities. Popular stock indices in India are BSE Sensex and NSE Nifty. Now, what is Sensex? Our topic is Sensex. What is Sensex? Sensex was first coined by one analyst, Mr. Deepak Mohani. He introduced the term Sensex. The term Sensex is a portmanteau of two words, sensitive and index. It's a combination, sensitive and index. The Sensex is an index that reflects the Bombay Stock Exchange, whereas Nifty is an index which represents the National Stock Exchange. The Sensex index comprises 30 stocks on BSE. These stocks are the largest and most actively traded scrips on BSE. There are 4 to 5 criteria by which these scrips are selected. First of all, they should be listed on Bombay Stock Exchange. They should be large or mega cap stock. A small company will not be included in the index. Then all these stocks should be relatively liquid. That means they should be heavy trading in those scripts. Then the revenue generated by these companies should be from core activities. Core activities means core industries of the economy. Suppose there is a company called Delta Corp. It is engaged in the casinos. They are operating casinos. Now, casino is not a core activity. So that company will never form a part of index. So all revenue, all the companies will be selected only from those companies which are engaged in core activities. And a diversified and balanced sector involvement in line with the Indian equity market. So some industry may be from pharmaceutical, some will be from metal, some will be from banks, some will be from commodities, like that. Just like Sensex is the index of Bombay Stock Exchange, Nifty is the index of National Stock Exchange. Now,
किसका? हाँ, पकड़ा गया.
Now, what does Sensex reflect?
तो जान के पकड़ाया.
चेतन भाई, अली शहंशाह भाई को म्यूट कर दीजिए प्लीज.
Go on mute everybody, please.
म्यूट कर दिया है, सबको म्यूट कर दिया.
अली,
Now, what does Sensex reflect? Sensex reflects the movements in stock market. So if the Sensex increases, it means the prices of those underlying 30 scripts have increased. If the Sensex decreases, it means the prices of those underlying 30 stocks have decreased. Now, it does not restrict to those 30 scripts. Because the index has increased, majority of prices of the majority stocks must have increased. Likewise, whenever the Sensex decreases, majority of the stock prices of majority of the companies will decrease. Now, market research analysis refers to Sensex to understand the overall growth development in industry, company stock market trend. Technically, stock market is considered as barometer of the economy of any country. That's why Sensex is important to study. How is Sensex calculated? It's a technical question, so I am not going into detail. But let us see what is the significance of Sensex. Now the Sensex is 60,000. Sensex reflects the stock market movement. As I already told you, if the Sensex increases, it means it indicates a general increase in the prices of shares and vice versa. Indian markets have been scoring new highs in September, like it crossed 60,000. Despite there are two major bad news in the world market. First news is about nervousness around China's Evergrande debt for default, which has a cascading effect. And the other one is the Fed's rate tapering decision. Still, our markets are increasing. Does that mean that our economy is, it has matured or it has turned around? Most analysts are confident that the rally would sustain. The rally which has occurred is not only sufficient, it should sustain also. What is sustenance? Suppose we know that if we go to any airline at the last minute, if my usual fare from say Rajkot to Bombay is 5,000, at the last minute it will be 15,000. So if I am going to operate an airline company, if I project my revenue that for each seat I can charge 15,000 rupees, and I am having 162 seats in the aircraft, then I would be earning 162 and 15,000 rupees, then it is wrong. Because that price of 15,000 will not sustain, because it's only a last minute price. Whenever passengers book in advance, airline has to give discount. So that price of 15,000 will not sustain every day. Similarly, stock market can increase to any level, but it should be sustained. Sustenance can be in two ways. Either there is liquidity in the market or there is growth in the economy. Today, when the Sensex has crossed 60,000, it is necessary to understand that how it has crossed 60,000. Is there really an economic turnaround, or it is merely driving by liquidity? Earlier, when I was child, whosoever was having a car was considered to be rich. We also felt that the person who is having a car is rich enough to afford the car. But in present scenario, it is not so. Even a person who is earning 20 to 25,000 per month can afford to can buy a car because it is available on installments. So car sales have increased. Why? Because liquidity in the market has increased. People are given loan. People are given finance. So they are having more liquidity. Similarly, after 2003-04, when the home loan interest rates went down drastically, demand for homes increased. And after 2004-05, you can see there is a high prices have always increased in real estate. So in present scenario, economic growth is just beginning to turn around, and we find Sensex at 60,000. It has not fully turned around. Still the Sensex is 60,000. Why? Let us examine these. First of all, valuation of earnings in stock market is on a different footing. Suppose to simplify this, let me give an example. Suppose I am forming a company with 10 crore rupees. All of you are my shareholders. So I am issuing shares of 10 rupees. That means 1 crore shares have been issued by me and my company has a capital of 10 crores. Tomorrow, next year, the company has earned a profit of 5 crore. That means per share, every shareholder has earned 5 rupees per share. So next year, my book value will be 15 crore rupees and my book value per share will be 15 rupees per share. So in a layman's language, if I want to sell off this company, I can fetch 15 crore rupees. But in stock market, it is not so. If my earning per share is 5 rupees per share, then my share price, my company can fetch a price of 20 times of my earning. That means if my share price is 5 rupees per share, my valuation will be 100 rupees. I am thinking that my valuation is only 15 rupees per share. But in stock market, it can be valued at 70 rupees, 80 rupees, 100 rupees, or even 125 rupees. So at present, markets are trading at almost 20 times of the earnings. That means they are overvalued or highly valued, if not overvalued. Further, Indian volatility index. This is something technical in nature, but I will have to tell it. Indian volatility index is also high. Domestic markets have remained extraordinarily resilient. Still, the structural bull story remains in place with growing evidence that a new residential property cycle has begun after a 7-year downturn. So liquidity has increased in the market, but it is coupled with growth also, but growth is not such as can warrant a share market index or economic growth commensurate with the index of 60,000. India seems to be at a major inflection point in earnings with the corporate profits to GDP ratio bouncing off an all-time low of 1.20% in financial year 20 to estimated 2.1% in financial year 21. That means profitability of the companies have increased and it has contributed more to the GDP of the country. Let us see further what is the significance of Sensex for businesses. The stock market affects not only the listed companies, but also individual businesses in an economy in different ways. There are two aspects. One is consumer spending and second one is business operations. Let us now look at the stock market vis-a-vis the economy. First of all, though sometimes stock market and economy may converge and sometimes they may diverge, indexes can be valuable tools for gauging the health of the overall economy, though occasionally it may be misleading. Typically, stock market and economic performance are aligned. If the economy is good, stock market should be high. Reverse is vice versa is not always true. If the stock market is high, economy should be good, but it is not necessary that economy is good. When the stock market is performing well, usually not, but not compulsorily, it is a function of a growing economy. Economic growth can be measured in several ways, but one of the most prominent is GDP, gross domestic product. When GDP is growing, individual businesses are producing more and usually expanding. Expanding business activity usually increases valuation and leads to high stock market prices. Similarly, conversely, historically, steep market declines preceded the Great Depression in 1930 also, as well as recently when the Lehman Brothers crisis happened in 2007 to 2009. Often, let us study consumer spending. How does it affect? Consumers spend more during bull markets because they are making more profit not only from the stock market but from the effects of a strong economy. And they also feel wealthier when they see their portfolios business rise in value. This increases wealth often leads to increased consumer spending. As consumers buy more goods and services when they are confident they are in a financial position to do so. When consumers buy more, businesses that sell those goods and services, they also produce more and sell more. So the profitability of the company increases and revenue and profitability both increases. Exactly reverse is in the case of bear markets. So stock market movements can thus impact companies in a variety of ways. The rise and fall of share prices value affects a company's market capitalization and therefore its market value. The higher the shares are priced, the more a company is worth in the market value and vice versa. The market value of company can be important while considering mergers and acquisitions. In last lockdown, Mukesh Ambani Reliance Industries raised 1,90,000 crores. How could he raise? Because valuation of Reliance is too high. He could sell off his shares in the market, in the international market. Share issuance decisions can also be affected by stock performance. If a stock is doing well, a company might be more inclined to issue more shares because they believe they can raise more capital at higher value. Similarly, positive increase in stock values can also potentially generate new interest for a particular company or sector. Thus, when the market is bullish, all the factors lead to expansion, more production, and hence more GDP. So practically, it seems that stock market index and economy both go in the same direction. A rising stock market measured by an index such as Sensex shows a booming economy and a positive sentiment. There is no doubt about it. So when Sensex crosses 60,000, it is definitely shows a booming economy and a positive statement. However, there are certain factors to be kept in mind, particularly on the macroeconomic level. Over the last decade, the stock market and the economy have started to show a little divergence. Now, that is the main point which I want to emphasize. Actually, my topic is Sensex, the future of India, New India. But I would like to give some light on the negative factor, that why it cannot be so what we are expecting. Let us study in a little detail. So it may look sound some boring for you, but I will have to touch this topic. See, indexes are dominated by sectors such as financial services, telecom, IT, etc. So when Sensex is high, what does it mean? The prices of those 30 companies are high. Now, in those 30 companies, there are many companies which are engaged in financial services, telecom and IT also, but they don't represent the entire Indian economy. They form only a small part of the economy, but their contribution to the index is large. Most of India's employment tends to be in SMEs, small and medium enterprises, manufacturing, trading, agriculture, which does not have any representation in the stock market. There is a famous saying in stock market that stocks are slaves of earnings. So if the earning is good, then stocks will rise. A decade ago, many investors predicted that the emerging markets would deliver higher returns to investors due to their high growth rate, but this has not happened. India is a high growth country, but it has not delivered in terms of corporate profits. So index is high. On the other hand, America grows at a much lower rate, but has delivered terrific returns to investors because American companies have delivered high profits in the last decade. So stock market reacts on profitability and not growth. If the economic growth is there, stock market will definitely be high. But since stock market is high, it is not necessary that the economy does good. Every donkey is an animal, but not all the animals are donkeys. So if the economy is good, it will definitely lead to high stock market valuation. Another thing, stock markets tends to be forward looking. What is going to happen in future? It discounts today. So that's why investors who think that a stock will deliver higher performance in future will value stocks to be higher. Therefore, an expected recovery in the economy in the future will raise prices in the stock markets today. And this is exactly what has happened now. We feel that our economy will recover to a great extent, and this expectation has fueled the prices of the on the stock market. Then another thing, majority of the revenues of IT companies come from international transactions. So companies have become increasingly global. So necessarily they may not represent what is happening in Indian economy. So it is beneficial for the economy. Again, stock markets reflect mostly large companies. The way indexes such as Sensex and Nifty work is that the larger the company, the more significant the impact on the index. Today in India, only top 10 to 20 companies have a disproportionate effect on the price of the common indices. So even though the company is struggling, a positive earnings trend in the top 20 companies will make the stock markets act differently. So this is not reflected in the economic recovery, so it is reflected only in Sensex. Then what about COVID crisis? The losses which will happen qualitatively and even quantitatively is not yet. Now let us come to how this stock market may distort the economy, or how we may not be able to fully understand the stock relation between stock market and economy. Let us study that. Stock prices move on expectation about the future and not present. It is important to us to understand how liquidity has improved in stock market, and because of that liquidity, stock market prices have risen. Let me tell you, a close look at the data given by the central government tells us that the bulk of the profit has come from driving down costs. When large corporates drive down costs, how do they cut their costs? They will do so by renegotiating terms with their employees, suppliers, contractors. Their suppliers and contractors, in turn, will renegotiate with the people and firms they work with. This is how things boil down the hierarchy. People working in these firms on lower incomes and most must cut down their own expenses to survive. So what is good for the corporates is not necessarily good for the overall economy. Nevertheless, what is good for the listed companies should be good for the stock market as well. That's why when I say that stock market does not necessarily mean that economy is good as of now, because profitability of the companies might have increased because of the cutting down the cost, which has affected general public. Further, in RBI annual report also pointed out that earning growth of corporates, the stock market price cannot be explained by fundamentals alone. So fundamentally, they may not have much expanded, but the stock prices have risen to a greater extent. It also needs to be mentioned that stock market prices have been rising faster than the company earnings, because if investor expects that company will earn profit in future, he is ready to give more now. That's why stocks have become costlier. The year-on-year money supply has also grown by 11.74% after having steadily grown by 12% through March of 2020 and in January 2021 also. What does this mean? This has happened because Reserve Bank of India has printed money and pumped it into the financial system to drive down interest rates. As the government's debt manager, it is the RBI's job to ensure that the government can borrow at lower interest rate. And the RBI did just that. It printed a lot of money in 2020-21 and continues to do so in this year also. This led to two things. It brought down interest rates on fixed deposits, the major form of saving for Indians, to very low levels. In fact, if you adjust the interest rate on bank fixed deposit with the inflation, fixed deposit will turn in negative territory. So this led to more individuals looking for a higher return and investing their savings in the stock market. Mark my words, instead of putting money in fixed deposit or in investments bearing fixed return, they are more turning to stock market, which is no doubt a good sign. But this pushed up stock prices to higher levels, disconnected from the overall state of the economy. This can be seen from the fact that the number of demat accounts, which had...
Ketan bhai,
yes.
Ketan bhai, we are running out of time.
This last point only. So, number of demat accounts has also increased from 39.3 million to 55.1 million. And other than the RBI printing money, foreign portfolio investors brought also stocks worth billions for these reasons only. And still, if the Sensex touched an all-time high, means investors have not taken the RBI's warning seriously. This is what I wanted to emphasize. So as a final thought, stock market and economy should go together, but they are not the same. Contrary to popular belief, the stock market and the economy are two different things. The GDP of an economy and the stock market gains are incompatible, and in fact, there is little comparison between the two. The major reason for the discrepancy is the difference in the size of the two markets. The economy depends on millions of factors that can have both a positive and negative effect, while the stock market is only affected by one factor, the supply and demand of stocks. So though Sensex has crossed 60,000 and surely bears future of New India, but the future depends on a number of other factors also. With this, I will conclude my session.
Manish bhai, you have to unmute yourself.
So thank you, Chetan bhai, for your remarks and updates on the Sensex. We will follow this through with the Q&A session very shortly. Our next speaker is Mr. Ketan Shah. He's an alumnus of IIM Ahmedabad, an experienced investment banker with over 25 years of fundraising, mergers and acquisitions, cross-sectoral and global experience with over 150 transactions across equity financing, infrastructure, and mergers and acquisitions. So he has also held senior positions across several companies: SBI Capital Markets, Torrent Group, which is into power and pharma, Ernst & Young, ICICI Securities, Barclays Capital, Edelweiss, and Daiwa Capital. His last position was as head of investment banking of Daiwa, which is a Japanese investment banking house. So Case, when he's not working on investments, he sort of likely you will find him to be humming a Pancham number, relying on Gulzar's insights into emotions that drive motivations. Or you might find him applying Sahir Luthyanvi or Majru's philosophy to the cyclicality, greed, and fear that drive financial markets. You can also, he's a Bollywood enthusiast. You can rely on him for quoting every lyric and trivia of 2,500 Bollywood compositions, or just share a cartoon of the day. So over to Ketan Bhai for his remarks on.
Manish Bhai, you can also add, he is heading his organization Panini Advisors, which is based in Bombay.
Yeah, so currently he's an entrepreneur and he heads his own organization called Panini. So over to you, Ketan Bhai.
Ketan Bhai, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Thanks, Manish. Thanks for the kind introduction. And first of all, thanks Zana Foundation for this opportunity to share my thoughts with the wider member group and public at large. At Panini and over 20-30 years, I have significant experience in fundraising and individual finances at for the corporate level and at the individual level. And now there is a huge growth opportunity as even in the social sector, which Amitav ji also mentioned. And my idea today is to share some thoughts around that. Fortunately, thanks to the democratization that is come about because of the digital economy, anyone who has a good idea, anyone who's really passionate about what he wants to do, there is a certain a sort of greater probability of him finding traction in today's world in terms of getting the funding for his dreams or his plans. And that's what I want to share my thoughts on. And this could be in both the for-profit sector or the not-for-profit sector. And that's where I'm talking into two parts. We look at both worlds, but the bottom line is that if you are passionate about what you want to do, and if you have thought through your plan, if it's something that is achievable, feasible, successful, there are different routes available in terms of funding at different stages of your organization, whether you're an early stage startup, whether you're sort of a growth company, whether your business has grown into an SME, or you're a larger sort of organization. Different forms of fund financing are available to pursue your dreams. And even if you just want to sell your business, that's also possible in today's world. And I'll just quickly take you through some of the observations that are there, where you need to sort of educate yourself, but be aware that some things in these sort of area are possible. So maybe let's start with the sort of the for-profit side, and then in another 5-7 minutes I will move to the not-for-profit side. I think the first thing you need to sort of be conscious about is really what is your stage of enterprise, what level are you in terms of your thoughts or your implementation. In the for-profit sector, the stage is far more important than just an idea, because in a country of 130 crore people, ideas can be a dime a dozen. But if you have sort of acted upon your ideas, and if you can show that these ideas can achieve some amount of success, either in terms of customer traction or in terms of revenues, or in terms of acceptance by people at large. That's the first thing you would want to see and establish, and that's what you would like to sort of carry out at the first place. If you can do that, there are different types of people who may be willing to join hands with you in building up a larger organization. When I say different types of people, there are different types of financial providers. There are debt providers, there are equity providers, there are risk takers, there are foreign strategic investors who are willing to join hands. There are people who can fund research stage ideas. There are people who can fund seed stage funding. Now, India is very, very dynamic. We have across all our IITs and IIMs, we have lots of incubators who are willing to support good entrepreneurs in incubating their ideas. If your business has sort of achieved some level of traction, there are people willing to sort of invest and take it to the next line of growth. So the first thing that you need to do is to have a good idea, something that is creating an impact. In the for-profit sector, obviously the impact needs to be in terms of customer revenue and profits. But if you have that, sort of, you should move to the next stage. The next thing is to then identify a sort of set of like-minded financial providers who would be relevant to you at your stage of evolution. You could be a family business which is looking to professionalize. You could be an SME which wants some funds to go to the next stage. And as I said, you could just be a seed level startup. There are, and of course, you might just be getting debt for working capital or setting up a project. Different possibilities exist, but first thing is to identify who would be the right kind of partners or financial partners who would be sort of willing to look at this set, because different kind of investors and finance providers have different objectives and different core areas. So you identify the set that is relevant for you. The second step that you take is to prepare what is called a deck, a sort of a information plan, a sort of which highlights things about you, your business, your strengths, the market, the ecosystem, and then also on the parallel create what is called a financial model, so that you can sort of translate your thoughts into numbers, because at the end of the day, financial investors or finance providers are largely driven by numbers. In that process, you may need to take the help of somebody who understands finance, especially if you're a non sort of finance entrepreneur, or even an SME for that matter, or a large group. And I didn't mention IPOs because in the sense I'm expecting the audience to be more companies of lower stage of evolution, but we just saw that a company like Zomato did a hugely successful IPO. So even as companies keep on growing, you have newer and newer pools of capital available, and the ecosystem it's necessary for each stage to be there, because whoever invests at stage 1 needs an exit at stage 2 or stage 4 or stage 6, because that's how the financial ecosystem works. But the point I was trying to make is that there are people today who are willing to support different businesses and at different stages of evolution. And for that, for you to get the right fit, you need to create the right kind of collateral, which is on one hand comprehensive in terms of setting your thoughts on paper, but on the other hand is crisp enough so that somebody can glance through it very quickly and identify if this is worth doing or not, because typically investors receive 8 to 10 proposals a day. But that's the second stage of what you would need to do. So that, and what I have found is that this exercise is sort of extremely useful for the founding team or the promoter itself, because it helps them decide on their business plan. It helps them sort of answer certain questions. Why am I doing road A, and why am I not going to road B? And then you analyze the impact of each of your decisions and plan accordingly. So that is the second step. So which articulation of your thoughts into some sort of a business plan or a collateral. And with that, you approach the financing pool that is relevant for you. And as I said, there are lots of different pools that are available now in the Indian context. Last heard, there were at least 1,970 funds in India, and at least 10 funds were getting added every day. And then there are lots of overseas players. There are individuals, there are HNIs. So I would say that there are probably 3,000-4,000 people in the ecosystem, including banks and NBFCs. But not every, I would say 98% may not be relevant to you. So you need to identify the right 2% who would look at something like this. And then you need to sort of make yourself aware about what is the checklist that this pool or your relevant pool wants. What is it that they want to see in you or your proposals? And then achieve those milestones to give them that confidence. And that's, again, as I said, there's a large ecosystem. There are good alumni networks. There are incubator systems. There are advisors. Once you sort of get that, sort of train yourself to achieve those milestones, because that increases the probability of your attracting the right kind of finance and capital that you're sort of going to look for. That's the third stage. After that, you kind of, I think the whole idea about business is of risk and return. So if you can demonstrate a proof of concept, that is very critical for, I would say, 90% of the financing pool. Although there is a 10% pool which is also willing to do this without any proof of concept, but their terms are fairly onerous. But the 90% pool would want to see some track record. And so if you establish that, that significantly enhances your probability of attracting that capital. Your personal background, what you have done so far, is also quite important, because that gives comfort to somebody in terms of partnering with you. Eventually, the investors don't want to do the business themselves. They want you to run the business on a day-to-day basis. And they're looking for people who demonstrate that acumen and that capability to sort of, execute those plans effectively. Once you have sort of, and the proof of concept sort of helps them get that comfort. Thereafter, there is a sort of, the next element is deciding on the quantum of financing that will help you achieve your plans, go from stage A to stage B. Again, a fair amount of thought from your side would be very, very useful here, because if you take too much of capital, it's a sort of, let me use a simple analogy here. At the end of the day, each business that you do will deliver some amount of, let's say, profits, which for the sake of an analogy, we can say will deliver some amount of puris. Now, if there are 10 people who are going to take a share of those puris, and the puris that are delivered by the business are finite, you might have 5 puris as a profit every year. Now, if there are 10 guys wanting a share of that puri, then each guy only gets half a puri. And if there are 5 guys, then each guy gets 1 puri. So the more amount of capital that you use to sort of achieve that outcome will have a bearing on the overall profitability of your enterprise, and hence plan wisely. If you are sort of more careful in terms of the money that you're using to achieve your business goals, that is something that your investors will always not only appreciate, it will translate into a better sort of shareholding for you. And let me explain the concept of what is a shareholding. What is the whole idea of getting finance from others? Earlier, if you see in the olden era, people only had their own money to use to achieve their business goals. And if they didn't have any money, there were usurious money lenders. People used to borrow at 24% and 36% per annum, and to sort of meet their needs. What digitization and capital markets has done is that it has brought in people to join hands together. If you need to build a wall, either you can bring all the 100 bricks yourself, or you can have 100 people bringing in one brick each, or you as a promoter or a founder say that I have got 30 bricks and I'm looking for another 10 people who will bring me 7 bricks each, and together we shall build a wall. And then, depending on how many bricks each person has, that is the percentage shareholding that they have in your company. And eventually, when the company makes profits, you share the profits in that ratio of the percentage shareholding. So coming back to my point of the funds that you need, the more sort of capital efficient you are, the better it will be in terms of the percentage shareholding you will have in your own company. And hence, you need to choose wisely in terms of how much funds do you need to manage your business. But so the quantum of funding has a key role in identifying which pool of investors and which pool of capital that you need to sort of reach out to enable you to achieve your goals. So having sort of thought through a business idea, having sort of demonstrated proof of concept in some form, and to do that, which means you would have spent some time on that business, you would have spent some money in trying to do that business, and you would have incurred some expenses, your own capital. That sort of gives the comfort to the investor. Then you have a business plan. Then you decide how much funds you need. You go approach the right pool of capital providers or finance providers. They could just be a debt lender, or they could be risk sharers. And then the whole process in terms of coming together starts. If you have people who will then sign on saying, okay, hey, I'm willing to join hands with you, and I'm willing to provide you the money to support your ideas and your plans, and I believe that they're going to make profit, and my investment is going to make money. Then together with those investors, you might modify and create what is an agreed or a joint business plan, and sort of start the whole process. There are several company law formalities and shareholder agreements that are sort of done for that. This same process is true even if you want to just sell your business, or you want to get an international partner to join hands. And we have had several scenarios where a recent transaction that we did at Panini, a large European player joined hands with an Indian partner, they're trying to do the business jointly in India. In another case, a Dubai-based company just bought out an Indian business, and they are using their services to pursue global opportunities, because the Indian company had a lot of capabilities. So there are different kind of partnerships that are possible. between, it could be an individual, it could be an organization, it could be an SME, it could be a large player. But essentially, the world has capital to provide if you can demonstrate that your business and your ideas are attractive enough for them to get their returns. And that's what today there is the empowering of dreams in the digital era. If you've got a good idea, and there are, I see tons and tons of interesting college and maybe a couple of years experience graduates thinking of innovative solutions. People are making drones, people are thinking of medical devices, people are looking at technology that can sort of solve a lot of diseases. People are looking at platforms which enable farmers to sell. They're on mental health, on sort of pet food and sort of pet retailing. There are all sorts of different ideas as the world is expanding, as the economy sort of mushrooms. There are lots of different possibilities. What is your passion? What is it that you are good at? If you identify that and you pursue that, it's possible to sort of get capital. There are certain formalities that are important to complete after you do that, which is typically called corporate governance sort of framework. There are accounting and legal sort of obligations to be complied. These are checks and balances which are sort of kept in the system so that people do not just commit a fraud. They don't just run away with the money that they have raised from other people, whether it's a lender or an investor. And the ecosystem also has developed its own checks and balances, and you will need to sort of be compliant with that to be able to sort of be eligible for that capital. But the bottom line, again, which I have said again throughout this chat, is if you have a dream, if you have the capability to do something innovative which attracts revenue and can make profit eventually, there are different sources of capital available in the world, and the world is eager to sort of join hands with you. And so think well, do well, and don't hesitate to dream big. Thanks. With that, let me move to the same concept applied to the not-for-profit sector, because the beauty of this evolution is that this is not just limited to people who have ideas that make profit. Today in India, there are scores of people who have committed themselves to improving lives of other people. This could be in the poverty area, this could be in food, it could be in malnutrition of children, it could be in education, it could be in healthcare. And there is a huge ecosystem now globally and in India, which is also turning an eye, because as people have made profits, socially responsible citizens are also eager to see how they can contribute back to the society and lend a helping hand to those who are underprivileged. And as you would have seen, it's part of Zana Foundation's vision and of values as well, to have empathy, to support humanitarian values. And today, there is a lot of opportunity, even for those who have ideas that can change and make an impact on people's lives, even if they don't make profits. So you'll be surprised to know that as last year, almost $9 to $10 billion, which is almost like 60 to 70,000 crores, were invested by people in philanthropic and sort of quasi-philanthropic causes. So, and that number has gone up by 25% from in the last 1 year. So as more and large companies and more people are getting conscious of the world around them, they are saying, hey, can I do something for, to make a change? And then there are lots of people who have committed their own lives for that cause. It could be, you could be a retired professional, you could be a young, budding, sort of socially conscious citizen who says, this is where I want to do. And there are people who are also looking to support those ventures. The principles of funding there remain the same, which is that there are different pools of capital for social capital as well. Let me give you there are 4 or 5 different categories. You could have a foreign foundation. You could have what is called CSR, or corporate social responsibility in listed corporates. You could have Indian foundations. You can have HNIs and family offices, and then you have retail individuals, the people who support individual causes. So there are again large different sectors and forms of sort of funding which is possible. Again, it starts with the first 2 things. Do you have a good idea that you are passionate about? In the corporate sector, in the for-profit sector, people will ask, will this idea make money? Will it get revenue and profits? In the not-for-profit sector, people will ask, is this idea going to create an impact, right? Will it change lives? They will test that. How much funding is needed and what is the outcomes that your idea and your activity can achieve? They will also check again whether you've done something in this. Are you doing it, or is it just an idea? Again, the stage of your organization will make a difference to the kind of funding or the capital that you attract. People know of Akshay Patra, which is doing such a great job feeding people. And then there are lots of small individuals who are running different type of NGOs, sector 8 companies, which is basically, carrying out activities which make an impact, but may not necessarily be for profit. It doesn't mean that you will not charge money. Philanthropy does not mean that you will do things for free. You're absolutely entitled to charge something which is a reasonable economic value for what you are doing. That is really part of the founders. But at the end of the day, you are not looking to make profits to take them home. You're not increasing valuations. You're basically looking to impact lives. So coming back to the social capital stages, again, you will have the same. Do you have an idea? Do you have a business plan of how to execute and implement that idea? Do you have a sense of how much quantum of capital that you will need? And with that, you will need to then see and translate how much of that, what is the impact you can create. Recently in the COVID era, as Panini, we helped, there were people who were sort of doing COVID help in different states. And there's a very good charity working in a state in Bihar. And now there were no hospitals there at that, or the hospital capacity was inadequate to sort of, serve the kind of extent of COVID impact that was there. They demonstrated that it is an organized charity. They have done good work in the past. This is the problem that they're currently facing. We shared their track record as well as the need there, and so many people came forward to sort of support their cause, which was more of a retail sort of initiative. But as I said, there are different types of pools of capital depending on the level of your organization. So coming back to the steps remain the same. Do you have an idea? Can you demonstrate proof of concept? Can you do it? Do you have skin in the game? Are you doing it, or are you just talking about it and waiting for other people to give you the money to do it, right? You could do it at a very small scale with your own money and then say, okay, this is what I have done. Now can somebody else help me? Once you do that, then you again go back, have a plan, have some collateral which puts your thoughts down, enables people to evaluate what you're doing and decide whether they want to support them, right? And then you identify the right people who would support your initiative. As I mentioned, it could be foreign foundations, it could be Indian corporates, it could be domestic family offices, it could be HNIs. It could be different set of people. You reached out to them, tell them this is what you're doing, and good. The good part of Indian ecosystem now is that there are incubators even for the not-for-profit sector. There are people who will train people on how to handle such ventures. And if they are convinced that you will do a good job, they may even give you a grant. But of course, such sources are fewer right now. But again, there is a lot of mentoring and help that is available or that has started to become available. The good thing is that the pool of capital is growing. It's grown almost 25% between last year and this year. So more and more people are coming forward to support good initiatives. Having said that, I must mention that while I always emphasize that capital is possible, believe me, it is not easy. The people who provide capital are some of the sharpest brains in the world. They are very, very sort of, they have an attention to a lot of minute details. They're clear on what they want to achieve, what they want to see from you, and they only want to sort of partner and provide funds to somebody who matches their thought process. And so you have to be very rehearsed. You have to sort of really think through what you're doing. They will do a lot of due diligence to check out whether what you're saying works out or not. And hence, this whole process is a fairly long process. You don't expect that you will step out of the door and within 1 month, you will have 2 checks, with you. It's a very, very long process. Sometimes it's like delivering a baby or delivering an elephant baby is more like the time estimate for some of these things. But the important thing, as I said again and again, if you have the vision, if you have the ideas, if you have the thought processes, then there are. It's not undoable. And you just have to do some more homework and finding who can do that. Capital providers have their own biases. This is a sad reality, and I think it's an honest situation. You may have somebody who wants to support philanthropy, but he only wants to do it in Rajasthan or Bihar because that's where he hails from. You may have somebody who wants to do it in Tamil Nadu because that is the village he has come from. And I think it's absolutely fine, and it's very respectable that the person who provides the capital has a goal in mind, and he's looking for an entrepreneur who will match his goal. So we should respect that, and our focus or our onus should be to identify those who match our vision. We may want to do something in education, we may want to do something in disaster management, we may want to do something on renewable energy or sustainable development. Identify our cause, identify why we deserve the capital or the money more than somebody else, and then start out on the chase. At Panini, our endeavor has so far been more on the for-profit sector, helping people who own businesses to grow them, to get them the capital they need to achieve their plans. It could be early stage founders as well. It could be somebody who just wants to sell the business. But we are increasingly doing our research on the second category and seeing if we can pick up and you see what can be done for them, or at least point fingers or guiding hand. I think the best part of this whole journey, having been in this for about 30 years, is that there is, as I call, the democratization of information and passion. Earlier, an opportunity which could only be pursued by, say, a Reliance or a Tata's. Today, we have lots of small guys, unknown people, both in the for-profit and the not-for-profit sector, who have had a vision, had an idea, have gone out and have made a mark for themselves. And hence, the first thing we need to do is to tell ourselves that it can be done. And then, of course, thereafter, the marathon will start in terms of doing what needs to be done to get it done. But I think it all starts with the passion and the idea of what we want to do. And that's what I wanted to reach out to you people for, and sort of let there be wings, to all your plans. And of course, don't forget to stay grounded. Thanks, and I'll be happy to address any queries you have.
So thanks, Ketan Bhai, for your session. And I think in your talk, you talked about different types of players and different stages of evolution with respect to the fundraiser. But the fundraiser is at different stage of evolution, and therefore the matching need may be with a certain type of a capital provider. So it would be great if you can just take out 2 or 3 examples and point out that at this stage, this type of a fund provider would help, and say at another stage, another type of a fund provider would help.
Sure. So let's start from the sort of absolute top to the bottom. At the highest level of capital provider is the market that Chetan Bhai talked about, Chetan Bhai Gaglani talked about, which is the capital market or the Sensex. So you have the IPOs. So when a company is very large, the company is listed and they raise funds in the capital market. Most of these transactions are in thousands of crores. You don't have an IPO or a market unless the company needs, 1,000 or a couple of thousand of crores, or at least 500 crores. Below that stage, you have what is called growth or buyout equity, which is again where companies that have scaled up at least 100, 200, 300 crores, and they are then wanting to sort of leap to become a bigger player, a global player, or widen their ambit. And you have private equity investors, you have pre-IPO investors, you have buyout funds. You also have international strategic partners who are willing to partner you in your journey to where you are a middle you're not a small company, but you're a middle level company, and then you want to sort of grow further. Just below that, you have the SMEs, and which are basically an SME in India is anyone more than, let's say, 10 to 20 crores of revenues. And then you have MSMEs and all that, which grow right up to 250 crores. There again, you have smaller stages of growth capital and sometimes venture funds who are willing to support you. All these 3 categories, and you have a lot of family offices that have come into play right now who are willing to support you in your endeavor. All these 3 are equity investors. They share your risk. So you are not sort of, if your business doesn't do well, they don't get anything. If your business does well, then they get a share of your profits, and they will have a say in how you will govern your company and how you will run it. You need to take their approvals in terms of how you run the business. There is a separate category of providers, which is your debt providers, which is your lenders, which most people know, SBI, ICICI, HDFC Bank. All these guys, of course, want collateral. So if you have a house or you have a motor car or something, you take debt from them. Below the growth and the venture capital, you now have a whole series of investors, which is also formed an ecosystem, which is venture and angel funds. These people support businesses and initiatives at very, very early stage. Maybe 1.5 crore revenue, maybe 20 lakhs of revenue, where the business is at a very early stage, but they are still willing to take that risk. So you have angel funds and venture funds available in the industry now, who are willing to take much higher risk. And at the lowest level, you have something called incubators and seed funds. These are people who give money at very, very early stage, even no revenue. It may just be an idea, but then they will take a very, very high share of your equity and support you in your plans. You have to be careful of raising funds at that stage, because if your plans might grow in a big way, but then you might find that you're a very small shareholder in the whole exercise. So there are different pros and cons. But to answer your question, I hope, Manish, there is that entire spectrum of incubators, seed funds, angel funds, venture capital, early stage private equity, growth capital, buyout funds, and capital market listed providers. And across this entire chain, there is also foreign strategic partners who might be, in a similar line of business and are looking to sort of, join hands with somebody like you. So there are lots of different sort of avenues of capital, and depending on, and in addition to the debt providers, of course, and then you can tap either one of them.
So thanks. I think that was very informative. Any in your experience at Panini or even elsewhere, are you seeing any type of transaction where startups related to, say, swapping of batteries for EV, for example, I'm just giving one example, they are getting funded or they are sort of trying to raise funds?
Yeah, so I can tell you that in principle, the mobility sector or the batteries and the EV sector is very, very hot, as in lots of funding has happened. It's the aggregate funding would be in billions of dollars. Within that, each segment, obviously there are lots of competitive forces at play, and investors are then taking a call on whether that segment, is it too early or is it ripe. You understand, all investors are also sort of hawks in terms of assessing the sort of profitability of the business. The battery swapping idea that you are suggesting, in my view, it is an idea that will definitely sort of is relevant for the times, but the economics of it, how the ecosystem will play out, what is the sort of impact of other players in the market, who are the is it a direct consumer play, is it with the OEMs, and so a lot of other sort of aspects will need to be considered, but fundamentally the sector is something that people are looking at very closely.
So currently, I think worldwide we are seeing a lot of energy related pricing issues. So you are seeing gas prices in Europe going very, very high. Coal, I'm told, is sort of almost 100% up. You have shortages of fuel, though not economic, in UK. Indian power plants, I'm told, are also running on very, very low inventories. And of course, in that process, ethanol has been sort of touted as one of the solutions. So in your bandwidth, are you seeing any transactions happening on startups in the ethanol sector?
So a couple of people have sort of started hitting the market, and it is a more advanced stage. So see, the investor universe or the funnel sort of is very wide at the top for vanilla businesses. If you're talking of selling a beauty soap, every investor understands that industry and is able to sort of analyze and have a view on whether it is worth investing or not. As you go into more and more specialized technologies with sort of 0-1 outcomes, the investor universe shrinks in terms of who can understand and evaluate that plan and take a call on its attractiveness. But to answer your question, ethanol based, we are working. I mean, there are biomass players who are looking at ethanol, and there is compressed biogas, which is sort of, some funds have announced, getting into that sector. So ethanol as well is definitely on the radar. I don't see a reason why it is not.
So thanks a lot, Ketan, and thanks a lot, viewers, for your this thing. We'll now have just a vote of thanks. I will just invite Sister Tanaz Patel. And Sister Tanaz is essentially a graphic designer by profession and worked in advertising. Handled marquee clients like Leela, Kempinski, Benetton, Oil Asia. She loves traveling and trekking. And also she has been involved with the Goa Women's Car Rally conducted by Times and Automobile Association of India. So she also enjoys reading, participating in activities like rafting, hiking, and which keeps her closer to nature. So Sister Tanaz, we require your help for a vote of thanks.
Unmute yourself, Tanaz Bana, unmute yourself.
Hello. Yeah. Thanks, Manish, for making me look so interesting, more than I am. Thank you so much. Amita Pathak, a wonderful introduction to all our esteemed speakers of Zena family and Zena Foundation. The topic of stock exchange by Chetan Gaglani. In the tough times of jobs not being there and scarce, the Sensex is booming. Citizens are worried of a catastrophe of falling down. He explained the stock market and the reality, fundamentals very well explained. It was very interesting to hear how he explained the realities versus the fundamentals of the BSE and the NSE, and how reality is much more different, and the stock markets are based on 20 scripts only and not on the scripts on agriculture and stuff like that. So the reality is far different than the stock market is. And yes, the stock market makes you feel happy when your stocks rise up, and that is which I never realized myself, but it helps you to think you have the money in your career. So yes, the psychology behind the stock market was also well explained by Manish. Sorry, by Amit, by Chetan. And for the NPO issue, Mr. Ketan Shah was very, very enlightening with the issues faced by NPO, and people's dream can be made a success because of the fundings available today, from the smallest to the largest funding available. As he explained, seed capital is a different thing, and how the vagaries of having seed capitals was also very much explained. You're going to give away a big chunk of your equity to somebody, and plus the things about it was beautifully explained by Ketan. Thank you very much, all of you, for giving the layman and a few of the people who understand the industry well also an insightful thing. Thanks a lot. And of course, thanks to Rajiv Bhaiya always for the background support. He always gives each and every one of us. Thank you very much.
So this brings us to the end of our session today. We once again thank all our speakers and you viewers for taking an interest in this program. And with this, we wind up the session for today. Thank you once again.
Thank you.